Hello and welcome back to the railway. It's not going to be a surprise what's in this box, and if we open it we can have a closer look at it. There she is, the beautiful apple green fine Scotsman. Just put those things to one side. You notice this dust lying around here. When I'd opened this planning to film this video, I'd noticed that there was a lot of dust coming out of the tender. If I shake that, you can see just falling out there. Tender was fitted with foam inside originally to try and deaden the noise, stop the echoey noise while it was running around the layout, and that's just degraded and it's turning into dust. So I think before we use this locomotive, we'll dismantle the tender and replace the foam. And we'll just dismantle it and we'll see if we can get rid of all this foam. Now it's just come away. You can see just that screw there was all that was holding the tender together, and we can see straight away that all this foam has degraded and it's creating dust and a great deal of mess. So I think we'll just take out the weight, and then I'm going to take this away and hoover it out. I think that'll be far too noisy to video, and then we'll come back to it and we'll fit a new piece of foam and get it back together. So here it is, it's all been hoovered out, and we'll just give it a final wipe. And we'll refit the weight. Just slots over there, and this piece of foam I've cut from a scouring pad, we'll just put that on there, and that will just help deaden the sound, and then we'll screw it back together again. Hold that there. Get it to slot back in, and the trick is not over tightening this, because this is a metal screw into plastic moulding. We don't want to cause any damage. There we go. So I think that will be much better, and hopefully it'll last another 40 years. So we'll just brush away the rest of this foam, and then we'll get her out and on the track, and we'll have a closer look. And this model had these beautiful green painted wheels, and the centre wheel, which is flangeless, is painted green all the way around. Really pretty. So this dates her somewhere around 1968 to 1970. The later models had plated wheels. She also has an adhesion. We'll just fit her onto the track, hook up the tender, and then we'll see if we can have a closer look. She was supplied in a very smart box. Brown cardboard outer sleeve, locomotive sitting safely in a yellow plastic tray. There was even information printed on the back of the box, and there's a homemade label by the looks of it on the end of this box. She has these beautiful white bands along the boiler, and a handrail picked out in silver, and then this lovely gold lettering with the red drop shadow. Valve gear looks quite intricate, although I believe at the time it was criticised for not being quite accurate, and it has rather a lot of oil on. Its previous owner seemed to like to squirt a lot of oil on this, and the front wheels again have these green centres, really very pretty. And looking around the front here, there isn't a great deal of detail, but what there is quite good. These metal buffers, and we've got the standard decoupling here, and we've got all sorts of bits and pieces around here. And moving along towards the tender, we've got handrail picked out in silver here, and beautiful lettering again picked out in gold with red drop shadow. We've got that lovely white line running around it. Got a great big pile of coal there, ready for a very long journey, and plenty of under detail on the tender. You can see the suspension along here. Looking at the back of the tender, we've got the important corridor connection. This is so they could change crews without having to stop the train and slow down the service. We've got the metal buffers at the back, and we've got the handrail picked out in silver. And looking at the top, We've got a couple of brass safety valves here, they've gone a bit black with age, and we've got some detailing on the roof that could be a hatch there. A nice detail on the tender here as well. We've got that shovel lying down the side there, quite a nice little touch. And of course we have here the all important name, Flying Scotsman. So there she is, trying Hornby's Flying Scotsman R.855. I think anybody would have been pleased to have this in their model railway back in the late 60s. It's such a powerful looking model. So having got this fantastic model, we'd need some teak coaches to go with it. Now they weren't available immediately, they came along in about 1970, only 2 years after this model was first released. And another great shot here from the minicam. We'll just have to bring it to a stop before the diamond crossing and let the EM2 with the maroon coaches across into the passing loop. And now we can move off and go and collect the coaches from the station. And we'll just set those points and back up to the coaches. Another excellent smooth try-in coupling, and away she goes with the coaches. These shots from the minicam are a little bit wobbly and sometimes are a bit blurred and the colours a bit all over the place, but they are quite good fun and they do really get some angles we couldn't otherwise see. Now we're out on the inner line, we'll get her around and up onto the incline so we can have a closer look at the coaches. And there goes the EM2 backing up with those maroon coaches. I think those BR maroon coaches will come in handy later on, so we'll keep an eye on those. Now we need to get Flying Scotsman around through the crossover and onto the outer line, and then we'll bring her up the incline where we can bring her to a stop and have a closer look at the teak coaches. And just look, she effortlessly pulls those coaches up the incline, and we'll bring it to a gentle stop just about here. This is trying Hornby's Thompson style coach, and it came along in around 1970 and it was available through to 1977, catalogue number R.850. This LNER teak coach had a very pleasing effect, and it was made by adding something to the plastics to give this sort of wood effect. And we have this white band printed along the window which is supposed to represent the handrail in the corridor. And here we have the detail on the other side of the coach. We can see there's no white band running through the windows on this side. We can also see, looking through the windows, that there is no seating inside these. Because of the oval windows on the ends of the coaches, it wasn't possible to use the seating unit from the other Mark I coaches, and it was thought too expensive to make a unit just for these coaches. And the printed detail is in yellow, and it's quite finely printed at both ends. And here's the matching brake coach. Like the other coach, it's in a DP window box, and it was available from 1970 to 1977. R746 has excellent detail around the guard compartment, and these window lights are particularly good. In the passenger compartment, you have these little window lights above the main body of the window. There's a slight variation on that on the other side, which we'll have a look at shortly. It has the running number of 1870, and I forgot to say that the running number of the standard coaches was 1010. It has the oval window at one end, and we've got the white rimmed wheels as well. So I'll just turn that around and then we'll have a look at the other side. And there we can see the underside. There's plenty of undercoach detail as well. It's the standard Mark I coach detail. This one's a later Hornby Railways one, and it does have the plastic moulded axles. So we'll just get her back on the track, hook it up, and there we can see the white rail running along the windows, just printed on the window, just to give the effect of the handrail. And again, we've got this lovely detail on this side again, all around the doors and the windows. It's really nice moulding. So the Flying Scotsman with a rake of 4 teak coaches. They're not bursting with detail like some of today's models, but the overall effect is very good. Remember, these were toys and not really models like we think of models today. We'll just continue along here, up to the AM2, and then we'll get her on the move and back to the sidings. We'll just bring her forward beyond the points, bring her to a stop, and open points number 9, and take her back across the crossover onto the inside line. As she comes around the first radius curve, we'll set point 18 and 17 so she goes in towards the sheds in the yard. And up into the yard she comes, underneath the gantries, R.850, trying Hornby's EM2. And on the right there's another Flying Scotsman hiding in the engine shed. So we'll just bring the turntable around to track number 3, and then we'll bring her out onto the turntable. We'll bring the turntable round to the exit track, and then we'll just watch her go around and pick up those maroon coaches. So here is trying Hornby's Brunswick green version of the Flying Scotsman, catalogue number R.850. This, along with the apple green version, both arrived in late 1968, although neither model really arrived in the catalogue until 1969. In the 1968 catalogue, there was an illustration of the Brunswick green version on page 2 and what appears to be a mock-up on page 5. To be included in this photograph on page 5, it would have had to be a mock-up. This photograph would have been taken in late 67 for the 1968 catalogue, and none of the production models for sale were ready till late 68. Looking really terrific as she crosses the Grand Victorian Suspension Bridge. This bridge was available between 1966 and 67 in this colour, had a catalogue number of R.854, and we're going to get a great view now of the firebox glow as she passes the Brunswick green Flying Scotsman in the sidings. The firebox glow was available up until 1971 on both of these models, when it was sadly cut to save production costs. She's handling points number 8 with no problem at all. All those coaches are going to come across nice and smoothly, and then we'll close the points behind her. And I think that was excellent performance from the points and all of those wheels. And now we'll bring her around the inside line and bring her up to the station and bring her to a gentle stop. And this Flying Scotsman's from 1971 onwards, and it has the plated wheels. There's quite a bit of damage to this one. So we'll take the top off it and we'll have a look at the firebox glow. The firebox glow was removed from these models in 1971 to cut production costs. We'll just get that off there and we'll put that out of the way. Catch the screw. So there we have it. It's the XO4 motor, and this is the firebox glow area. And you can see a yellowy orange piece of plastic there. So the power comes from the motor and lights up the bulb situated in the top here. So we'll see if we can get a bit of power on. There we go. It's as simple as that, and it just lights up the yellowy orange piece of plastic. We could have had hours of fun with that, couldn't we, when we were younger? Excellent. We'll just take off the power leads. And the tender here had the noise box in it. Just gave that chuff sound. I think we'll have a look at that on another day when I run a locomotive with chuff chuff sound. I'm not going to run this one today. I think we'll get back to the Brunswick Green Flying Scotsman now. And doesn't she look great coming out of there with that rake of maroon coaches? We'll just bring her around and up to the station with the apple green Flying Scotsman. Looking at the pair of them together, it would be a really difficult choice just to choose one. If we look at this Brunswick green one, it has a red nameplate, just like the apple green one. It was a mistake by trying on their first production run. I'm not sure quite how many were made like this, but it was soon corrected and black nameplates were fitted. Certainly everything from 1969 onwards had black nameplates. Also, the running number, applied to the cab sides with a sticky label, was far too thick. This was also later corrected on the models with the black nameplates. Those of you worried by non-scale speed running may want to look away now. I'm just going to let these two have a run around, and then we'll bring them both to a stop and we'll have a closer look at the Brunswick Green model. And don't these two look terrific as they charge down the straight, into the curve, and around they go, effortlessly up the incline with that rake of 4 coaches. I think Triang really knew what they were doing when they made these two models. And we'll bring the apple green to a stop just here at the station. We'll let the Brunswick Green continue for a moment or two. Running them at high speed like this, I make no apologies. This is exactly what they were meant for, and it does bring a huge smile to the face. We'll bring her around the curve and up the incline, and we'll bring her to a gentle stop, and we'll have a very quick look at her. I'm not going to go into huge detail here, but we can see we've got the running number on the boiler there, and beautiful painting on here. And there is that cab detail. See those numbers are a little bit on the thick side there, and they were replaced by 1969 with a slightly finer version. I'm going to come around to the back, and importantly, there's no corridor connection there. And that buffer beam is a lovely shade of red, and that lining on the tender really is nice. You can see the handrails were all picked out in silver. It has begun to wear away a little. This model is over 40 years old. I'll just unhook the tender, and then we can have a look at some of the detail on the inner side of the tender. Just roll that back there, and we can see all this lovely detail in here. This is the same as the apple green version. And there's the cab detail. There's not much of it, the most important bit being the firebox, which will glow nice and yellow when the power's on. I'm going to leave you this week with some images of how it looked in the catalogue in 1969. And I hope you'll have a look back again next week, and we'll have something else from the late Triang Hornby period. There are some great models on these 2 pages. Thank you for watching. Bye now.